We inherited a house and land when my father-in-law died. It is a nice house on 2 acres in the country. No homeowners association, no neighborhood, just a neighbor to one side and to the back. Everyone else was further away. We decided we would take the opportunity to use the land, put a couple of tiny houses on it for our kids, and set them up. We brought this up multiple times with pretty much everyone who would listen. We discussed legality, viability, all repercussions, everything. We told everyone our dreams of a homestead, of a semi-village where our children lived here on the land with us, albeit in tiny homes. And we had farm animals and gardens and whatever sustainable practices we could muster. Nobody poo-pooed our plans outright. The neighbor at the back said we wouldn't be able to install a septic, but they were wrong. The neighbor on the side said property values might go down, but they weren't planning on selling, so it wouldn't matter. This is a place in rural Arkansas where people have cattle, horses, goats, chickens, ducks, emus, multiple buildings on their property, including one person about a quarter-mile away who has an RV set up for living in. People have dog runs and broken-down vehicles and tractors and barns and all sorts of stuff. The property in front of us has an old industrial-scale chicken factory, can't be seen from the road. Today, the guy behind us was using an auger, and I walked over and joked, "Are you digging for gold?" And he went off on me about how he is installing a shield because our dog keeps going over there and pooping on his land, and he doesn't appreciate the eyesore of our buildings and how we are bringing property values down. However, he has no fences to keep other dogs out, and the people behind him have 2 very large, very hyper retrievers who regularly walk all over his land, leaving huge piles. And on my land too, so it isn't uncommon for free-range dogs in this area. I make it a point to keep our dogs inside as much as possible, or on leads, or in the fences we have been able to put up. I explained that we are trying to help our kids because life is hard nowadays, and he mentioned something about, "Did you ask anyone for permission to put up buildings?" Then he goes on to say that one of the other guys behind him has to mow because you won't, referring to land that isn't ours to mow, which confused the hell out of me. Our land has weeds, which come almost to the knee, but we are allowing them to grow a bit because there are flowers, and we are trying to allow the beehive to gather more locally, and the weeds are pretty sparse, just a little tall. I mentioned that we are working on putting up a fence, but trying to figure out what would be best. I told him I had hoped that if he had a problem with something that he would have said something to us sooner. He said everyone is mad. Him, the neighbor beside us, his neighbors behind him, people in town, everyone. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. The neighbor isn't an AH just because he doesn't like what you're doing. He doesn't have to like it. As long as he isn't messing with you or harassing you about it, he is free to dislike it. The only real AH thing I see in this post is this bit. He has no fences to keep other dogs out. It's not his responsibility to put up a fence for your dogs. It's your responsibility to keep them under control. Trying to dismiss your dog's behavior because the neighbor doesn't have a fence and other dogs do it makes you the a-hole. Comment 2. Did you get permits? Even in rural areas, you generally have to have permits. I live in a rural area, 5 acres, and if your neighbors don't like you, they will turn you into the county. And for frick's sake, put up a fence. It's not your neighbor's job to keep your dog from shitting on their property. Just because you have land doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want if it affects your neighbors. Moving into the country and thinking that what you do doesn't affect your neighbors is what makes you the a-hole. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post about our plans for the property we inherited from my father-in-law. I really appreciate all the support and advice you gave. Unfortunately, things have taken a turn for the worse since then. It all started when I walked over to our neighbor behind us, who was using an auger. I joked about him digging for gold, but he didn't take it well. He went off on me, complaining about our dog pooping on his land and how our buildings are an eyesore that's bringing down property values. I was taken aback because we've been trying our best to keep our dogs inside, on leads, or in the fences we've managed to put up so far. Plus, there are other free-range dogs in the area that leave piles on his land too, but he seemed to single us out. The conversation took an even more surprising turn when he mentioned something about asking for permission to put up buildings. I was confused because we've discussed our plans with pretty much everyone who would listen, and no one had outright objected before. We've been working hard to make sure everything is legal and viable, considering all the repercussions. What really threw me for a loop was when he said one of the other guys behind him has to mow because we won't. I had no idea what he was talking about since the land he referred to isn't even ours to mow. We've been letting the weeds on our property grow a bit to help out the local beehive, but they're not overly dense or anything. I tried to explain that we're working on putting up a fence and figuring out the best option, but he wasn't having it. That's when he dropped the bombshell. Apparently, everyone is mad at us. Him, the neighbor beside us, his neighbors behind him, and even people in town. I was stunned. We had no idea there was this much animosity towards our plans. Looking back, I realized we should have been more proactive in communicating with our neighbors. We were so excited about our vision for the property that we may have gotten ahead of ourselves. I wish they had come to us sooner with their concerns so we could have addressed them before things escalated to this point. After the confrontation, I talked to my wife, and we decided to call a meeting with all the neighbors to clear the air. It was a tense gathering, but we listened to their grievances and tried to find common ground. We explained our intentions and how we wanted to create a sustainable, close-knit community for our family while respecting the area's rural character. It wasn't easy, but we managed to reach a compromise. We agreed to scale back some of our plans, like limiting the number of tiny houses and ensuring they blend in with the surroundings. We also promised to be more mindful of our dogs and to work on putting up fences as soon as possible. In return, the neighbors said they'd be more understanding and communicate with us directly if any issues arise in the future. Looking back on my childhood, I remember how my grandparents had a small farm where all the family would gather during the summers. It was a place of love, laughter, and togetherness. That's the feeling I want to recreate for my own children and grandchildren someday. I realize now that I got so caught up in the dream that I neglected to consider how it might affect others around us. This whole experience has been a wake-up call for me. It's taught me the importance of open communication and being a good neighbor. We're not giving up on our dreams, but we're going to pursue them in a way that's more inclusive and considerate of the community we're a part of. In the end, I'm grateful for the lessons learned and the opportunity to strengthen our relationships with our neighbors. It's not going to be easy, but I believe that with patience, understanding, and a willingness to compromise, we can create something truly special here, not just for our family, but for the entire community. Thanks again for reading and for all your support. I'll keep you updated on our progress as we navigate this new chapter in our lives. AI Aita for reporting my car stolen. When my sister used it without permission to rush her boyfriend to the hospital, fake names used: me 21, NB, me, sister 22, F Page, nephew, 1M, Luke, sister's BF 23, M, Rory. Currently I live at home, renting a room from my mom. Paige, Rory, and Luke all live here as well. I was recently able to buy my first car, and I haven't been able to drive it yet because I have a broken ankle. I'm the only one on the registration, and I pay for everything. Paige is really irresponsible with her belongings and has previously stolen from me. She also doesn't have her license yet. Rory has crashed both his mom's car and his car. So when I got my car, I told them that nobody but me was driving it. They also both smoke and refuse to wait until we park to smoke. They'll start smoking while we're still going, even with Luke present. I don't smoke and don't want anyone to smoke in my vehicle. They keep asking to borrow it, and I've been telling them no each time, which leads to them asking Mom and me getting yelled at to let them borrow it. I've been sticking to my guns and not letting them borrow it, despite getting punished for it. I've also been keeping the key on me so they can't take it. Luke has been sick recently. He had his vaccines and is having a mild reaction. Paige called the doctor and everything was normal. She still wanted to take him to the emergency room. I was out of my room at the time and had the key in my purse, in my room. She decided to grab my key and just go without even asking me. I went to take the trash out later and noticed my car missing. I called her and my mom and told them they had 30 minutes to have my vehicle home, or I was reporting it stolen. The hospital is 15 minutes away, so they would have had time to get it back. I guess they didn't believe me because they didn't show back up with my car. I called the police and my insurance, let them know it was stolen. I told the police what hospital they should be at, and the police showed up. Rory and Paige both got taken into police custody. Luke was picked up by his dad, who's in the middle of a bad divorce with Paige. I was able to get my car back, thankfully with no new damage. They had definitely smoked in it though, so I had to deep clean it. I decided to drop the charges, no need to make the living situation even worse. However, from my understanding, the police might still decide to prosecute. I didn't mean to make their life bad, I just wanted my car back. CPS showed up at the house and now it's looking like Paige might lose Luke. I've been really beating myself up over this. Am I the idiot or did I do the right thing? Edit. Luke's only reaction was a little bit of redness and soreness from the shot. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot, not by a long shot. By smoking, I assume Zaza, not cigarettes. Who drove? Paige without a license. Driving while intoxicated and without a license puts the baby in danger. As a parent, I would be absolutely livid if my child's other parent put them in danger like that. Luke's father had every right to know. The stealing just adds to the already stinky shoot cake. Comment 2. Your mom should have come to you and asked, and promised to make them respect your rules and her drive. If it was truly an emergency, why were they smoking? And why are you punished for saying no to your property? How much do they pay for rent? Not the idiot, as long as if you had been told, and it was a real emergency, you would have worked with them to get your nephew to urgent care. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last post, and I wanted to give you all an update on what's been happening. First off, thanks for all the support and advice you gave me last time. It's been a rough 3 months since the whole car incident. After Paige and Rory were taken into custody, things got really tense at home. Mom was furious with me for calling the cops, saying I overreacted and should have just waited for them to come back. She didn't seem to care that they took my car without permission or that they were smoking in it. Paige ended up losing custody of Luke to his dad, and she blames me for it. She's been giving me the silent treatment and shooting me dirty looks whenever we're in the same room. I feel terrible about how things turned out, but I still think I did the right thing by reporting the car stolen. To make matters worse, my ankle hasn't been healing as quickly as I'd hoped. I've been stuck at home most of the time, which means I'm constantly around Paige and her resentment towards me. It's been really stressful and emotionally draining. A few weeks ago, I finally got the okay from my doctor to start driving again. I was so excited to have some freedom and independence back, but then something happened that could either make or break everything. I was out running errands when I got a call from Rory. He was in a panic, saying he needed my help. Apparently, he'd gotten into some trouble with some shady people he owed money to, and they were threatening to hurt him if he didn't pay up. He begged me to lend him the money, promising to pay me back as soon as he could. I was torn. On the one hand, I didn't want to enable Rory's irresponsible behavior or get involved in his mess. But on the other hand, I couldn't just leave him to fend for himself. He sounded really scared on the phone. Against my better judgment, I agreed to help him out. I withdrew the money from my savings account and met up with him to give it to him. He was grateful and promised to pay me back within a month. But that was 2 months ago, and I haven't seen a dime from him. I've tried calling and texting him, but he's been dodging me. I'm starting to worry that I'll never see that money again. To make matters worse, Mom found out about the loan and flipped out on me. She said I was being stupid and naive and that I should have known better than to trust Rory. She's been holding it over my head ever since, using it as an excuse to criticize me and make me feel guilty. I've been thinking a lot about my childhood and how it's affected my relationships as an adult. Growing up, Mom was always really critical of me and never seemed satisfied with anything I did. She'd constantly compare me to Paige, saying how much more responsible and mature she was. I think that's part of the reason why I've always had a hard time standing up for myself and setting boundaries with people. I'm so used to just going along with what others want to avoid conflict and disappointment, but I'm realizing now that I need to start putting myself first and making decisions based on what's best for me, not just what will make others happy. It's not going to be easy, but I know it's necessary if I want to have healthy relationships and a fulfilling life. Anyway, that's where things are at right now. I'm still living at home, but I'm saving up to move out as soon as I can. I'm also looking into therapy to work through some of my childhood trauma and learn how to set better boundaries. Thanks for listening, and I'll keep you all updated on how things go from here. Take care. Aita for causing a family rift. After my sister-in-law refused to wear our mother-in-law's wedding dress, My brother-in-law, Jamie, 30-year-old male, is getting married in a couple of months to my sister-in-law, Emily, 30-year-old female. She is a lovely woman, and I have known her for 2 years since she started dating Jamie. Emily has started to look for wedding dresses, and she said she would not be wearing her mother's as it was not her style. My mother-in-law then offered her wedding dress. For information, my in-laws got married at 18 and 20. They were then by no means wealthy, and my mother-in-law's wedding dress was very simple and casual. My husband is adopted, and when we were planning our wedding, my mother-in-law offered her dress to me too. I adored it, and more than that, it was a more emotional thing than just a dress. I loved my mother-in-law and wanted to have something of hers for my wedding. Plus, she has always felt that her wedding was very simple, so my wearing her dress meant a lot to her. Emily, however, declined the dress and said she wanted her own. This was well received by my mother-in-law, who then told me to take the dress permanently and pass it on to our kids if we wanted to. As I wore it first, it should then go to me. However, yesterday we had dinner at our in-laws, and Emily pulled me aside and asked me if our mother-in-law didn't like her. I assured her that was not the case, that she was lovely, and that we both were excited that she was joining the family. She then, albeit very politely, said that my constant being joined at the hip with my mother-in-law and always doing everything she asked me to makes Emily feel like our mother-in-law loves me more, and maybe I might back off as she feels like I'm trying too hard, which is why she is falling short. My wearing my mother-in-law's wedding dress and keeping it as an heirloom just made her look bad. Honestly, I'm not confrontational, but I told her that my relationship with my mother-in-law was not going to change from my side, and that I was extremely sorry if she felt hurt by me in any way. I then excused myself, and when we were home, I told my husband what Emily said to me. He was mad and went outside to call my brother-in-law, and I didn't hear what he said. I thought that would be it, as I asked him not to involve his parents in our issues. Today, Emily's maid of honor called me and told me off for being a snitch and wanting my in-laws to always fawn over me. She said she couldn't believe I'd ruin a relationship over a dress, and I should just give it back to make it even with Emily. She also told me to back off from my brother-in-law's relationship, as I have now caused issues between them. I feel awful for ruining what was a great relationship between me and Emily, and I'm feeling guilty for saying anything and hopefully should have kept my mouth shut. Am I the a-hole? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot one. You didn't ruin anything. Emily's relationship with mother-in-law is a completely separate thing from yours. There should be no need for upstaging or downstaging. 2. Mother-in-law has obviously known you longer and is likely to be chummier with you over Emily at this stage. Emily should understand that if mother-in-law is a reasonable person, then she'll get her chance to have a great relationship with mother-in-law too. 3. It's clear someone is changing the story from what really happened, whether that's Emily or her friends. Comment 2. Not the idiot. You were offered the dress to wear and said yes. The dress now has sentimental value to you and should be available to be passed on should your daughters, swaz, or daughters-in-law be interested. She said no, so now has no say in the dress. If she wants a better relationship with your mother-in-law that is for her to work on, close relationships take time. And also, some people just click faster than others for whatever reason. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last post and a lot has happened since then. Things have really taken a turn for the worse with Emily and the whole wedding dress situation. About a week after my last post, Emily showed up at our house unannounced. She seemed really upset and asked to speak with me privately. We went into the living room, and she started going on about how she felt like I was trying to sabotage her relationship with Jamie and the rest of the family. She accused me of purposely making her look bad in front of my mother-in-law by keeping the wedding dress and said I was being selfish for not just giving it back to keep the peace. I tried to explain that it wasn't about the dress itself, but the sentimental value it held for me and my mother-in-law. But Emily wasn't having it. She said she didn't care about my stupid attachment to the dress and that I needed to stop being so clingy with my in-laws. Things got pretty heated and voices were raised. My husband must have overheard because he came in and told Emily she needed to leave. After she left, my husband called Jamie to tell him what happened. I could hear Jamie yelling through the phone, saying that Emily was just stressed about the wedding and that we needed to cut her some slack. My husband argued back that her behavior was unacceptable, regardless of wedding stress. They went back and forth for a while before hanging up on bad terms. I felt awful that I had caused this rift between brothers. Over the next few weeks, things were extremely tense. Emily refused to speak to me and would barely even look at me during family get-togethers. Jamie was clearly caught in the middle, trying to support his fiancée while also not wanting to damage his relationship with us. My mother-in-law picked up on the tension and pulled me aside one day to ask what was going on. Not wanting to lie, I reluctantly told her about the confrontation with Emily and the wedding dress issue. She was shocked and said she had no idea Emily felt that way. She assured me that she loved Emily and was excited to have her as a daughter-in-law. Apparently, my mother-in-law tried to smooth things over with Emily, but it backfired spectacularly. Emily accused her of always taking my side and said she was done trying to fit into this family. She told Jamie she wanted to elope, and if he didn't agree, the wedding was off. Jamie was devastated but said he had to stand by Emily. So now, with just a month until the original wedding date, everything is up in the air. Jamie and Emily might elope, or the wedding might be called off entirely. The family is fractured, with people taking sides. I can't help but feel responsible for all of it. If I had just given Emily the dress when she first asked, or kept my mouth shut when she confronted me, maybe none of this would have happened. Looking back, there were signs that Emily was feeling insecure in her place in the family long before the dress incident. I remember at their engagement party, she made a few comments about how she could never measure up to me in my mother-in-law's eyes. And there was the time she got upset when my in-laws gushed over a quilt I made them for their anniversary. I brushed those moments off then, but now I see I should have addressed her feelings sooner. I keep replaying that confrontation in my head, wishing I handled it differently. I hate that I let my attachment to a dress damage relationships. No matter how this plays out with the wedding, I know things will never be the same with Emily or Jamie. I just hope in time we can find a way to mend things. Family is so important, and I hate that mine is fractured because of my actions, however unintentional. Anyway, that's the mess I found myself in. I want to thank you all for reading and for your support and advice on my previous post. I'll try to update again if there are any significant developments. Take care, everyone. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.